I am Nora, and I live in America, on a quiet street near the river in Boston. People know me as the woman with the plain coat and the small smile. They think I rent a room above a bakery. They think I count coins in the checkout line. They have no idea that every month my bank account receives $98,000, steady as the tide. I never told my family, and I did not tell my friends. I learned long ago that money can make some hearts hard and some voices loud. So I built a quiet life that fits like a soft sweater. I own a gray house with a red door and a maple tree that leans toward the light. I paid for it in dollars, no loan, no noise. In the morning I make coffee and watch the city wake. I like the stillness. It reminds me that I am the one holding the pen to my story. I met Daniel in New York during a short work trip. He has calm eyes and a careful laugh. He grew up in Queens, the kind of place that teaches a person to read a room before speaking. His mother is Linda, his father is Robert, and his sister is Emma. They live in a brownstone that holds family photos in neat lines, faces smiling from vacations across America. Daniel told them about me, but not about the money. He did not know the number himself. I never told him. I told him about books I love, how I like to walk in rain, and how Boston feels like a city that will meet you halfway if you step with care. He said he wanted his family to meet me for dinner. I agreed, but a thought took root in my mind. I wanted to see how they treat a person they believe is poor. Not for revenge, not to laugh. I wanted to learn who they are when the world is not shining. I planned to go to dinner as a ruined and naive daughter, a woman who makes mistakes and has little to show for them. I would wear an old sweater and carry a worn purse with only a few dollars and some bus tickets. I would leave my car 2 blocks away and walk. I would speak with simple words and humble tone. I would not mention my house, my investments, or the gifts I send to shelters in Boston and schools in Chicago. I would not say that I have helped a small library in Philadelphia and a clinic in Denver with quiet checks, some in dollars, some in pounds, because the director once studied in London and laughs about exchange rates. I would keep my wealth in my pocket and my heart in my hand. That afternoon, I cleaned my house until it felt kind. I folded the soft blanket on the couch, wiped the kitchen counter, and watered the plant that sits by the red door. I took a last look at the rooms I built with long days and steady choices. The air smelled like lemon oil and paper. It felt good to remember that this home stands because I learned how to work, how to wait, and how to give. I changed into the old sweater, brushed my hair, and chose flat shoes with scuffed toes. In the mirror, I looked like the woman people step around in a hurry. It was the look I needed. Outside, the city was cool and gray. I walked to the bus stop even though I would not ride, just to set the mood inside my mind. Then, I turned toward the street where Daniel's family lived when they stayed in Boston for the season. The sidewalks were clean, and the lamps wore small flags that read United States of America in neat print. I passed a couple holding hands, a boy on a scooter, and a woman carrying flowers wrapped in paper. I thought of Europe for a moment, of old stone and cold rivers, and then I let the thought go. Tonight was about America, and about the way a table can reveal a life. I reached the brownstone and paused at the gate. I took a breath, checked the worn purse, and felt the thin shape of the bus tickets. I rang the bell. Footsteps came down the hall. My heart stayed calm, like a lake before a storm. The lock turned, the door opened, and warm light ran over the floor. As soon as I walked through the door, I stepped into warm light and the sound of plates, and I felt the house measuring me. The entry smelled of rosemary, lemon, and polish. A wide mirror caught my old sweater and my scuffed flats, while a framed map labeled United States of America watched from the stairwell. Linda came first, graceful in a navy dress, pearls bright as frost. "Nora, welcome," she said, and her smile touched my cheeks but not my eyes. Robert followed, tall and careful, a man who likes sums and settled answers. "Coat?" he asked, offering a wooden hanger as if it were a test. I kept my purse on my shoulder, the tired purse with a $10 bill, 2 singles, and a paper bus ticket folded flat. Daniel hovered next to me, gentle, worried, already guessing that I was choosing a path he could not see the end of. Emma appeared last, barefoot on the hallway rug, a blue dress swaying like a thought she hadn't finished having. "Hi," she said softly, and the softness was real. The dining room was trim and generous at once. An oak table held linen as plain as snow, silver standing like small soldiers. I took the chair nearest the window, where Boston's brick shoulders leaned against a gray sky. "We don't usually do formal," Linda said, though everything declared that they did. "But family is special." She said family like a gate with a latch. Robert poured water into heavy glasses. I thanked him and placed my purse at my feet, its thin leather warm against my ankle. Daniel met my eyes and nodded a small question. "Are you okay?"
I was.
I wanted to see who they were when a woman who seems poor sits at their table and says thank you with a steady voice. We began with salad, spinach, pear, and crumbs of blue cheese that looked like tiny maps of Europe. "Do you work nearby?" Robert asked, as if the answer might fall out of my pocket and onto the plate.
"Here and there," I said.
"I help at a small office by the river. I take the bus." "The bus," Linda repeated, and made the word neat. "That can be character building." "It can," I said, tasting pear and the calm I carry. Emma leaned forward. "What do you read on the bus?" she asked.
"Books," I said.
"Old ones. A little poetry. News about America. Sometimes I make lists." "Lists?" Daniel asked, trying to catch the thread. "Things to fix," I said. "Things to give." The roast chicken arrived with steam, rosemary, and the kind of golden skin that remembers fire. Linda served Daniel first, then Robert, then Emma, and then me. She gave me a wing, which can be kindness or not, depending on the hands that give it. I smiled and thanked her. Robert set bread beside my plate and tapped his knife against the butter dish like a tiny gavel. "Nora," he said, "young people in this country often find themselves in transitional seasons. If you need guidance with budgeting, I can suggest a spreadsheet." "Thank you," I said. "I keep a notebook." I did not say that the notebook lives in my quiet gray house with the red door, that it holds columns of numbers measured in dollars that arrive, $98, 000 every month, steady as rain. I did not say that I have paid mortgages for strangers and bought winter coats for women who had none, or that last week I moved £6,000 to a library fund because the director collects old British paperbacks and made me laugh about exchange rates. Emma passed me the crispest piece of skin from her plate and whispered, "You should have this." "Thank you," I said, and for a moment we were two women sharing a secret kindness. Linda asked about my family, and I answered gently, "They think I live small, and I let them." Robert asked if I had a plan, and I said yes, to keep learning the rooms of my life, even the cold ones. Daniel tried to change the subject by telling a story about New York in spring. Hot dog carts, the park waking up, the city pretending it never sleeps. I watched his face as he talked. He wanted me to be held, not weighed. Coffee followed, dark and honest. The talk turned to money as if drawn by a magnet. "We believe in sensible help," Robert said, laying the words like bricks. "If you ever need a loan, a small one, we could discuss terms." Linda added, "Or introductions. A girl can use connections more than cash." I looked at the mirror across the hall and saw myself as they must, the naive daughter, careful and thin.
"That is kind," I said.
"For tonight, I have what I need." I touched the purse with its folded bus ticket. I was tempted to open it and show the quiet joke, $3 and a paper slip, then tell them about the other purse they could not see, the one made of months and years and work that bought a house with a maple tree leaning toward the light. But the test was not over, and I wanted the lesson whole. When the plates were cleared, I stood to help, sleeves pushed to my elbows. Linda tried to protest, but I was already at the sink. Hot water ran bright, and the window showed a slice of Boston evening. Emma joined me with a stack of plates, and our shoulders touched. "You don't owe them a story," she said, barely louder than the water. "I know," I said, "but I owe myself the truth about a house." "A house?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "the one I hold inside my name." And in that moment, with soap, steam, and the city beyond the glass, I felt the door to the next part of my life begin to open. The coffee cooled while the talk grew sharp in small ways, like paper cuts you only feel when lemon finds them. Linda asked about my job again, this time with a soft tilt to her head. Security matters, she said. This country gives chances, but chances fade if you don't plan. I nodded and said I was learning every room of my life. Robert folded his napkin into a square and set it by his plate like a ledger closing. A person should carry 3 months of expenses, he said. Cash, not credit. Dollars only. That is wise, I answered. I did not say that the account in my name holds more than that by a wide field, that $98,000 walks in each month as steady as a clock, and that I let it sit like winter wheat. Emma cleared dessert plates and placed one slice of pie back in front of me with a quick smile. You barely ate, she whispered. Her kindness was simple and true, a small light in a room full of angles. Daniel tried to hold us together with stories of New York and Boston, of the park in spring and the harbor in fall, of hot dog carts and fresh paint on stoops. I watched his hands move as he spoke and felt a tug in my chest. He wanted me to be seen, not sorted. Linda asked if I had ever visited Europe. One summer, I said, long ago. Stone streets. Cold water. I liked the bridges. I left it there. This was not a night for far places. This was a night for the truth inside a small house with a red door in America. Robert returned to the subject of help, a word that can wear 2 faces. I know a man named Mark, he said. Finance. He mentors young people. A girl with grit could use a guide. Thank you, I said, and kept my voice calm. Guides are good when they listen. He didn't hear the edge in that, or maybe he did and chose to skate past it. Linda asked if I ever felt unsafe taking the bus. I told her the bus is a moving room where people try to be brave. I did not tell her that last week I sent $10,000 to a shelter that keeps their doors open late, or that I quietly cover rent for a woman named Grace while she studies for a license exam, or that I moved £4,000 to a tiny library fund because the director's face lit like a match when she spoke of new books. I have learned that money can shout or money can warm. I choose the second way. When Emma and I stood at the sink, the window gave us a slice of Boston night. Brick shoulders, street lamps, a girl in a bright coat walking fast. You don't have to answer them, Emma said. You can leave the questions like coats on a rack. The water ran hot over my hands. I know, I said, but I want to know who they are when they think a woman has nothing. Not nothing, she said, bumping my arm with her elbow. You have a spine made of steel wire. I laughed. I hope it bends where it should. Behind us, Daniel stacked cups and hummed. He looked at me like a person checks a compass before a long road. We moved to the living room for a last bit of talk. A framed map of the United States of America hung over the mantel, dotted with pins for places they had loved. New York, Boston, Chicago, Denver. I asked about the pin in the far west, and Linda brightened as she told a story of a road trip and a motel that smelled like oranges. The room softened. For a moment, we were just people telling the day to sit down and rest. Then Robert stood and offered me a folded card with his firm black letters on it, numbers lined up like a promise. If you need a small loan, he said, call. No interest for a month. I took it and slipped it into my thin purse with the bus ticket. Thank you, I said. In my mind, I saw my own house open its red door to the maple tree, the quiet rooms I paid for in dollars, and the ledger only I keep. Money as a tool, love as a rule, truth as the lock that fits my name. I stood with the card Robert had given me tucked into the thin purse, and the room floated in a hush that felt like the pause before rain. I thanked them again, then asked to clear the last cups. Linda blinked, surprised but nodded. In the kitchen, steam rose in soft ropes. Emma dried plates, her bracelet ticking like a tiny clock. Daniel leaned on the doorframe, trying to read my face, the way a person reads clouds for signs. You're awfully quiet, he said. I'm choosing my words, I answered. In the window, Boston kept its calm. Brick shoulders, a taxi sliding past, the United States of America carrying another night like a lantern. I turned off the water, and folded the towel. "Thank you for dinner," I said to Linda when we returned to the living room. "Your rosemary is perfect." She smiled, pleased, then studied me the way a jeweler tilts a stone to catch flaws. Robert hovered with his neat hands and his careful eyes. Emma slipped onto the arm of a chair, barefoot and brave. I set my purse on my knees and breathed in. "I want to tell you a story," I said. "It's mine." Daniel sat up. "Nora, let me," I said, and he did. "I grew up counting coins," I began. "I learned to fix what I had and to carry hope like a secret. I also learned to work, to study, to keep faith with myself. Now, each month, I am paid $98,000. I keep my life quiet because I've seen what money can do to voices in rooms. Tonight, I came as a ruined and naive daughter to learn how you receive a woman you think is little." I felt the words land like cards laid one by one on a table. Not loud, not cruel, just true. Linda's breath caught. Robert's jaw set, then softened. Emma's eyes widened, but she did not move from the arm of the chair. Daniel's shoulders fell, relief and doubt crossing like trains. "You were testing us?" Linda asked. "I was listening," I said. "I listened to your offers, spreadsheets, loans, connections, and I heard the care inside them and also the terms. I wanted to see who you are when dollars are small." Robert rubbed his thumb along the edge of his card. "We meant well." "I know," I said. "I believe you." I opened my purse and took out the folded bus ticket, then placed it beside his card on the coffee table as if they were two sides of a coin. "Here is what I carry when I want to remember the girl I was." Then I took out a second folded paper, a simple letter. "And this is what I carry when I want to change the weather." I handed the letter to Linda. It was a confirmed pledge, $25,000 to a women's shelter near the harbor, with a note to match up to another $25,000 if new donors came forward within a month. "They need beds and locks and hot water," I said. "If you want to help, call them. Not for me. For women who stand in line at midnight." Linda pressed a hand to her pearls. I can do that," she said, and her voice steadied. Emma slid down to the rug and looked up at me. "You could have laughed at us." "That isn't my way," I said. "Money can shout or money can warm. I choose warm." Robert cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Not for offering help, but for assuming you had none of your own." I nodded. "Apology accepted." Daniel walked me to the door. The hall mirror held our shapes like a promise waiting to be written. "Why didn't you tell me first?" he asked. "Because I needed to hear the room without your hands on the volume," I said. "Do you still want me?" His answer was quiet and sure. "Yes. For who you are, with or without the numbers." Outside, the street air tasted like rain. I did not take the bus. I walked the 2 blocks to where my car waited and drove through Boston's gentle grid, past the library I love and the park where children run in every season. At home, my gray house with the red door greeted me like a friend. I set the purse on the table, opened my ledger, and moved $15,000 more toward winter coats in New York and Chicago, and £3,000 toward a tiny library that keeps its lights brave in Denver's cold. Then I stood in the doorway and looked at the maple tree, its dark shape leaning toward the light. I am the woman who writes her own story, here in America, where a house can be a hush and a harbor, and money, when asked nicely, learns to be kind.